Welcome to the Music for Transformation interview series, where I get to interview amazing people who use music to enhance their own lives and that of other people as well. So first of all, just hit that subscribe button now and enjoy the interview. So today I am joined by the wonderful Diane McCann. Hi, Di.
Hello. Hi, James. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, it's great for you to be here. That sounded a bit strange, actually. Hi, Di, but there we go. We're starting off with a funny point straight away. So let me tell you a little bit about Diane and what she does. So she specialises in working with vibrational sound therapy and emotional regulation techniques, which I'm sure we'll be going into a little bit, balanced by a deep spiritual connection. Helping adults to release past hurts and trauma, empowering them to nurture their mental and emotional well-being and be in control of their emotions instead of their emotions controlling them. Can you relate? If you're watching this, I'm sure we all can. So she likes taking them on a journey from living in the head to the heart and finding a deeper inner connection. Now, Diane's also created unique programs and workshops, sharing with children, teenagers and young people how to release emotions in a healthy way, incorporating the wonderful and powerful benefits of working with sound. So her passion is to share her experience, enabling individuals to master their soul's gift, which I love, actually. There's some relations there with my definition of inner anthem, actually, which I say is your soul's unique expression. That's my sort of own definition of inner anthem. So yeah, anything about gifts and souls and all of that is very much up my street. Absolutely. So she helps people become empowered to raise their frequency and align to their own truth, helping to restore overall well-being and create a happy life. So it's absolutely amazing to have you on here, Di. So let's break that down a little bit. So if I was just to say it in a single question, what is it exactly that you do?
Yeah, that's quite a big question, actually.
You take it where you want to take it, basically.
Okay, so I think for me, what I do is I work with lots of different aspects. So there's probably 3 strands, if we look at those main strands that I work with. So the first one is going to be sound. So I work with, when we say vibrational sound therapy, just to break that down a little bit, I actually specialise in working with tuning forks, beautiful chime pipes, and the gong as well, which is a new addition this year. So I'm the gong is just amazing. So by working with sound, what I do is I work very much intuitively. Okay, so when I meet, say for example, I was working with an adult, I would do a very detailed consultation with them, because I look at their life dating right back to, say, birth, and we look at all the different things that have happened. So I will use sound to help them to work with any mental, emotional, physical or spiritual energy blocks that they may have. Combined with that, I've got a very deep interest in trauma, recovery from trauma, the brain, how the brain functions, and the nervous system. So I combine all of my knowledge from that aspect and the other aspect, and I fuse it all together. And then underpinning all of that is my deep sense of spiritual being and awareness. And what comes in from that aspect of myself will be, I know you'll be familiar with the term, James, because I saw it on Natalie's interview, is light language. So I also channel light language, and I use my voice a lot with toning. And when we talk about light language, some people are like, not sure what that is. And I've actually started adopting the phrase vibrational language, because that fits much more in with my work, Because when we're working with sound, it's all vibration, isn't it? It's vibration, energy, frequency. And with your voice is a unique vibration as well. And you can use that to, when I work with my voice, I use it to amplify the frequencies that I'm working with. And that goes in for somebody on a soul level. So I know that's quite a lot. Just I'm trying to summarize it and condense it as much as I possibly can for you. But they're the 3 strands that I work with. And then in fact, what I would do is, if I was to be working with an adult, following a very detailed consultation, like I've said, they would enter one of my programs. And then we not only work with sound in lots of different ways with their energy, we bring in some of the soul aspects, we bring in things to do with emotional and mental well-being and how to nurture that and become empowered, whilst also helping them to work through any trauma or other events that they've had happen in their life. So it really is an all-round perspective when you're working with somebody. I'm very much about empowering individuals, because when you work with sound's amazing, you know, and it goes in and it does the job. However, you need to be empowering individuals to go forward in their lives as well. Yeah. So I think that's a really important part of it.
So really, I think it's an excellent point. So is it a little bit like, you know, the sound helps to heal, but then of course, what if the person keeps doing the same thing as they've always done, and, you know, maybe having the same patterns of thoughts and things like that, they're likely to, for want of a better word, get damaged again, you know, psychologically. Is that kind of the thing? Whereas if you can sort of train them as well, teach them, educate them to maybe think in different ways, have different thought processes, and empower them, then hopefully, you know, that they've not only healed, but they're less likely to have those traumas again. Would that be the case? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, this is a change in lifestyle. You know, this isn't a fix. I don't fix people. It's not what I do. I share my experiences and I enable people and I help them to facilitate their journey and what they want to achieve going forward. It's a little bit like, you know, if you want to change your nutrition, that's a lifestyle change. And every now and again, you might go and have a bit of a binge on junk food or something, but then you know, it's your choice then if you get yourself back on track. And this is what it is really working with me. It's about making choices, and choices around what experiences you want to have going forwards. Yeah.
Lovely. Good. I like that. And I've always liked the real holistic approach, you know, anything to do with our health, our lifestyle. For me, it's always about holistic, because we are holistic individuals, aren't we? So yeah, I really like that you've done that, and you're bringing in all those different aspects of knowledge and experience, and, you know, creating a package that is obviously very successful. So yeah, really like that. I wanted to pick up on a point you said about, so you said about the light language, and you sort of phrase it vibrational language, and I wanted to sort of pick up a little bit more on sort of what that does, maybe talk about those vibrations a little bit, because obviously this series is to do with sound and music, you know, how people use sound and music. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about, I mean, for example, you know, can anyone use light language? Can anyone adopt it? Do you learn it? Is it just intuition? Why did you call it vibrational language? Are you able to just sort of discuss that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the term, a wide known term for it is light language. And light language comes in many forms. So it can be spoken. You can use your hands or other ways of coding. There's lots of different aspects to it. But if we focus purely on the voice part, because that's what we're talking about, sound. Okay. So with the sound, for me, I actually channel that through. So I just connect in and channel whatever is going to come through. Now, it can be a spoken dialect. The dialect makes no sense to the ego mind. it will make sense on a soul level, and it goes in and it activates. It can activate DNA and lots of other things on a soul level. So when I'm working, the tones that come through are ones that are channeled. Now, I know that this is true, because if I was to just try and make a normal sound now, like a voice sound, it would only go on for a short amount of time. When I'm channeling, the notes that come through are unbelievable. And the sound just goes on and on and on and on. So when I'm operating from my human perspective, I'm like, oh, I'm making that sound. Oh, now it stops. But when I'm mid-flow and just off in wherever I'm off to, it just comes through. And I know that the toning, the sounds, everything is coming in and merging with the instrument, so to speak, that I'm working with. And it hits the same frequency of the tuning forks that I'm working with. So in effect, what it's doing is it's amplifying. It's like having an amplifier and you turn it up, and that's how it works. So it might sound to the ego mind, the human aspect, a little bit bizarre, but it works, and it's real. Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify something there. So you use this if you were using a tuning fork, you'd use this at the same time. Is that correct? To amplify, or at different times?
Sometimes, yeah. Because the way I work, it's very intuitive. You know, I don't work from textbooks or templates. You know, everyone, the way to sort of imagine, well, the way it works is that everybody's different, aren't they? So you're different to me, our energy's different, our experiences in life, everything, our soul coding, vibrational blueprint is different. So when I'm working with people, you know, I will be shown what to do, how to work, but the way I work with you would be completely different to somebody else, because you will need something that somebody else doesn't, and vice versa. So when it comes through, it's not pre-planned. You know, I wouldn't pick up a tuning fork and go, oh, now I'm going to do this. It's just, it comes through, and it's very much a flow. It comes through when it needs to. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose for myself, I can somewhat relate that, I suppose, to the music that I create, you know, the songs or the music I create, because I will get an idea for a tune and it's come from somewhere. You know, I'm typically not someone that just sits down with a guitar and tries to work a few bits out. I just generally let the music come to me. It might be, often I use the example of when I'm brushing the teeth of an evening, because at that time I'm just sort of winding down. So I'm not thinking about what I've got to do now and what I've got to do, you know, my to-do list. And often just sort of music and songs will come to me, and I just, you know, capture those on my mobile, and then from there I can think about the instruments I want to come in. But I'm imagining, you know, really that's a similar thing, isn't it, where it's coming from a higher source, if you like.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm quite creative with what I do anyway, which is why I probably work with lots of different aspects for different people. And so, yeah, I very much understand that. And it is about just letting go and allowing that creative side to come in. It's really important, really important. Yeah.
How hard is it to keep the ego out, or how easy is it to keep the ego out of you know, when you're, because I imagine, for example, maybe if you take yourself back a few years, when you started all this process, did you have that little voice in your head sort of causing doubt that this was working, that you actually doing it, you know, correctly? Because these are all sort of ego things, aren't they? Where the ego is all about, is this right? This could be wrong, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So how easy is it to keep the ego out of it?
In the beginning, you're absolutely right. And especially when you do the type of work that I do. Now at the moment, the type of work that I do is being a bit more recognised. But if we backtrack a few years when I started, it was very much woo-woo. People didn't quite get it, you know. And that's great, because that's part of my blueprint that I've come in with, which is to do things that are different. I've got very much a pioneer blueprint that I've come in with, to do things differently and create new things, you know. So for me, that in the beginning, that was really difficult with the ego, you know. And this isn't just about sound, it's about being a person individually, overcoming the ego. And one of the ways to overcome the ego is to let go of attachment, expectations and outcomes. And you just surrender and know that whatever you are doing is for the highest good of whoever you are working with. You don't look for recognition. And when you let go of those things and you begin to surrender and have trust and have faith in yourself, that then mirrors back into your work. Mm. So I'm very much about my work. I don't have my work and I don't have me. The two are one. There is no difference. When I do things and I evolve, my work evolves. My work evolves, I evolve. We're very much aligned as one. So working on the ego was quite hard. And I'll be honest with you, when it came to the what I call vibrational language, light language, I found that quite difficult, because I was in my head, you know, I had all this stuff coming in that I was channeling, and they were saying, go on, do it. And I'm like, no, I can't, you know. And it's just stepping over that threshold. But it gets to a point that what this comes down to ultimately is authenticity. Mm. And you have to overcome the ego to embrace your own authenticity. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, that's
Does
great.
That makes sense.
It makes absolute sense to me. Yeah, absolutely. And I think something, you know, a little while ago, my vision of a sound therapist, if we just kind of say that, would have been maybe someone that had these tuning forks and, you know, just kind of hit a tuning fork and that was it. And for me, I sort of thought, you know, if I could sort of sound rude, yeah, that's a bit of a boring job, isn't it? So someone comes here, I've got this problem, oh, bang, there we go, you know, and that's it. But of course, it's a lot more than that. And I think what's coming from you is very much like you say, you know, this is you. You know, you're right on purpose. You're fulfilling your purpose, your mission on earth, etc. Is the word service a big part of your vocabulary? Because again, you know, if you're sort of saying, well, this is me, and you don't sort of see your job, if you like, different to yourself, is it all the fact and you know, again, using all the vibrational language and all that, is it all to serve the human, to serve other humans, if you like? Is that a sort of a word you use?
Yeah, the word service I think is used quite a lot. Does that word resonate with me? I understand the meaning behind it, and I guess really service means, you know, to be here for the higher good, to help others. So I understand the meaning behind it. It's not so much a word that I would use. Okay. It's more that I am here to help others. But service for me almost seems a bit of an outdated word now going forward. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think, again, you've got to resonate with the type of language that works for you, haven't you, as we all have. Okay, so yeah, absolutely.
But I do absolutely understand what you're saying is the meaning behind that word. And ultimately, you know, my whole purpose, it's like a mission, you know, to come here and encounter things as myself in the human experience and bring in some higher aspects in as I'm evolving, and then that evolves in my work, and then everything else just happens. You know, I think the reason that's not completely resonating with me is if I say, oh, I'm here to be of service, I'm actually attaching something to that, like an outcome, and I don't work that way. I'm very much free spirit. It is as it is.
But this is part of the letting go as well,
yes.
I'm assuming. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fine. I've got a question for you, Di. In terms of, again, you know, we've sort of spoken about sound. You've obviously said about you use your voice. How does this concept of sound and sound healing, sound therapy compare with music? Because obviously, you know, I'm involved more with music, that be, you know, creating a song with vocals, for example, and lyrics, or I can create pieces of music that again have a, you know, generally have a structure. I've created meditation tracks and things like that, which, you know, it is not so much like a verse chorus, but, you know, generally has more of a structure. But, you know, you could class obviously some of those instruments that you use, you know, could they be classed as musical instruments, or is it just sound? And I just wondered if you could, again, it's a very, I'm finding I'm asking you very open questions, actually, because I know your wealth of knowledge as well. And I just want to sort of see what direction you take it down, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, can people get benefits from music as opposed to sound? You know, any comments you've got around those areas?
Absolutely, to both. Yes, music and sound both have immense, huge benefits. I would say that for me personally, you know, there will be certain tracks that I will just go straight onto YouTube and listen to, whether they're specific frequencies or chanting. I like a lot of chanting music at the moment. Loving that, because it really quietens down the busyness in the brain. So I'm very much about the rhythm, repetition, things like that. So I actually feel that during, say, lockdown, if we're allowed to talk about lockdown, that my use of music increased tenfold, if I'm honest with you, especially with my son, you know. So I had a lot of relaxing music on in the background to help him, you know, just feel calm as well. Sound works amazingly with the frequencies. With frequencies, you can really cut in and get to nitty-gritty. So both for me have got huge benefits. I'm always got, you know, I'll get back from shopping and I'll be on YouTube and I've got my music on, or iTunes on. I go shopping, I have my iPod plugged in. Very rarely can I encounter a supermarket without being plugged into my music. It just takes me off to a different zone, you know. I grew up with my dad. One of the songs I always remember growing up with was The Animals, House of the Rising Sun. Now, I'm probably showing my age quite a lot here, but my dad's related to music a lot, I feel, in his lifetime. And that's sort of passed down to me. So as a teenager, you know, there was probably some quite traumatic times that I had in my childhood and as a teenager. And I remember always going up to my bedroom and, you know, like we had the big cassettes that used to take the top 40 on. Do you remember those? Yeah. So I used to go up, just had my music in my bedroom the whole time. So from the music perspective, it's a form of escape. It's a form of calming down. Very similar to you read a book. You get engrossed into a story. It's a form of escapism. So I love music. It's a huge part of my life. And I also love the pure frequencies of sound as well. And all of the ones that I work with are very different. So I work with the tuning forks. I work with those because they're very precise, intricate instruments. They will be used for a completely different reason to how I would use the gong. So very, very different ways, but both aspects I absolutely love. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
What about healing yourself then, Di? So you obviously heal a lot of other people. You know, you're working on their traumas, their emotional well-being and mental well-being, etc. So do you use all those tools on yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm a huge advocate for you practice what you preach, you know, and I remember going back to my beginning part of the journey, working with sound, and you really have to embody it. You really do, you know, to then be able to help others. That's what it's all about. And I can only do the work that I do by doing that.
How much of a difference is it, Di? Because I'm imagining, again, that if you're working with people, generally, maybe you can just answer this quickly. I'm imagining that they might be either sitting down or lying down, probably eyes closed, and they're pretty much resting. Would that be the case as you're doing the sound therapy?
Depends what I'm doing.
Okay.
Does depend how I work. My work's evolved a lot the last few months, I would say. It does depend on who I'm working with. Yeah.
Okay.
And
go on.
When I'm working, you know, I work a lot. I don't know how I don't trip over, to be honest with you, when I'm working. It must be quite a lot going on. But majority of the time I will work with my eyes closed. So I'm not only working with tuning forks, I could be working with chime pipes. I could have a tuning fork in one hand, so I could have coding going on, plus speaking. There's a hell of a lot that goes on. So it depends, because depending on how much somebody is in tune with their body, depends on sometimes how you work. Some people would lay completely still. Some people would have fingers, toes twitching, body movements, maybe a bit of shaking, which is all energy passing through. Depends who it is. So again, I never tend to put labels on anything. You know, I just go with the flow.
That's fine. Because the reason I was asking was, I'm imagining, obviously, if you're doing this on yourself, you've got to move to a certain degree, haven't you? You've got to create those sounds. So I imagine it's obviously a bit of a different experience, because if someone is just laying there and they're just relaxing, it's a little bit different to you. Again, there's obviously got to be some, you know, your brain's got to be working to kind of think, well, it's this sound and I'm doing it this way. Again, I know a lot of it must be intuitive and you're just going with the flow. And you've obviously explained that you do keep your eyes closed a lot anyway. But I just sort of wondered how much of a different experience it is when you're actually using sound to heal yourself versus what the client experiences.
It would be very different in some ways for me, because I'm working with my own, obviously I'm working my own personal energy and my own ascension and involvement. So some days I might just sit very quietly, and other days, you know, this is getting quite into the spiritual aspect. But if I was, how can I put this? We get what we call like downloads and upgrades. So it depends where I am. At the moment, I'm going through quite an intense, had quite a lot of downloads of information this week. So when I have that, I get lots of hand twitches and toe twitches and body movements, and I integrate all of that in. Sometimes that means moving around a lot. Other times, like a couple of days afterwards, I might just sit quite still and really connecting with breathing and do lots of visualization. So I work in lots of different ways, again, with myself, depending on where I am I wouldn't even say each day, I'd say each moment. I am pretty much about the moment. I don't tend to fast forward too much. So yeah, it's all about the flow. The thing for me is it's just embracing where you are at whatever point in time, you know. So earlier today, I was using the gong, but I was moving with the gong and flowing. I had light language come out. Another day, I may have just listened to a tuning fork and been quite still. All different.
Sure.
A bit like our moods, really. It depends. It depends what energy flow I'm in. A bit like your moods. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Great answers. Great to sort of get that insight of how it all works. You mentioned visualization as well. Do you get clients to visualize? Do you use that at all whilst you're using sound?
When I work with clients, it depends what types of clients I'm working with, because again, they're all different. So with each client, you're going to have a very different starting point. And that's why I like all of the different aspects that I work with. I may have some people come to me and they'd be really into the spiritual stuff. I may have someone come to me who may not be so open to that angle. So then I work with them very much, showing them the science behind a lot of what it does, because there is a lot of science. It's quantum physics at the end of the day. So I may be using that with them, and we work a lot more around the brain and patternings and nervous system and lots of things. So it depends where they are. Everyone, again, I know I keep saying everyone is different, but it's just how my work is. Some people, yes, visualizations, but they'll always be calm and relaxed, and it's really interesting because I remember, without going into too much detail, that, there was a girl that I worked with, and I work a lot with young people and teenagers, especially with modern day diagnosis of ASD, ADHD, sensory processing difficulties. And we did like this program that I've written, and then we started sessions. Now she was very, she's done amazing with the program, but for her levels, it comes down to levels of resistance, how much you're in your head, how much the ego is going to take over. And her first session, she was a little bit, I'm not sure. You could just sense it. She was, I know she was relaxing, but I could feel the zzz in the head. You just feel it. But come 3 sessions in, she's snoring, she's embracing light language, she's just doing amazing. And she had a huge level of resistance, huge. But it's how you go in at your starting point with somebody. Yeah, this isn't about me and what I know. I can look at someone and read them quite quickly. I can just see it, especially energetically. However, it's not about, let me show you this, let me show you that. I can do, it's about quick, I just get flashpoints of where they're going and what they're going to be doing, in working with me. And I know my starting point. And you can't push somebody, you've got to let them do it in their own time.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. And even myself, I would consider myself pretty open to, having, certainly this kind of conversation. I love these kind of conversations. I love to learn and find more out about all these different aspects of spirituality, etc. But there's still a part of me, there is that little voice of doubt in my head that still sometimes says, that sounds a bit woo-woo. And, how can you be certain? Where's the evidence? I am pretty much half right-brained, half left-brained. So, you can sort of see that can be a good thing, but, could have negatives as well at some stage. Do you find, how do you find teenagers versus adults then? Is there a general trend in certain terms of them being more resistant towards what you do for one of those groups, or does it totally depend?
It does depend. However, I'm working a lot with teenagers and young people, and a lot of those are going to be quite what I call highly consciously evolved. So they're holding quite a lot of light frequency within their body. And that's why they may have the modern day diagnoses that I spoke about earlier. All that means is that they're processing their environment in a completely different way, because they're they're more consciously evolved. So when they work with me, This might sound quite strange, but they just get what I'm saying. It resonates. And I think that's what it comes down to, is resonance. And that's how it works with them. And even though, you know, it's interesting because sometimes they get dragged along by their parent, you know, and it's like, you know, first time here, don't want to be here. But they enjoy it. You know, and there's something within them on that, what we call, you know, you said earlier, their soul level. Their soul level will resonate with what's happening. And that's what's really important. You know, this girl that I mentioned earlier, with her, we know not to talk about what's happened afterwards. Some people want to talk, but in that moment, in that pure moment when you're working, everything is as it is. And you're working on the soul level, and she is there, and her soul is energetically allowing that. But then when the session's finished, she's back in her human aspects, yeah? So then we don't talk about it because her human aspect can't comprehend what we've actually just done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
some people love to talk about it, but with others, you know, it's just done. Yeah.
So what kind of, if I use the phrase problems, do people come to you with?
Lots. So there will be, let me think. I'll do an adult example and I'll do a child one, yeah. So with an adult, their problems will be compounded. It's very rare. I don't think any one of us has probably just had one thing happen to us in our lives, have we? You know, we're all about having experiences. So it will be looking at past experiences, the traumatic events that may have happened, relationship patterns, any type of patterning that is going on. A lot of it stems back to childhood with many people. Sometimes before then, you know, I've done a lot of studies through personal interest as well, you know, on in utero damage, birth damage, emotions, you know, emotions transfer from birth mum to child, etc. So there's lots of stuff that happens to us before we even sort of pop our head into the world, so to speak, yeah, that we haven't even got a clue about. So it's any type of trauma, I guess. And how do you define that? Because each person individually is going to have their own definition of their own type of trauma. It can be a whole host of things. I guess an example would be, this is quite interesting, probably a bit of introspection into the type of work that I do, is that somebody was talking to me and they was saying something about when they talk to somebody, they just keep checking their watch. And so I just said to them, like, does that bother you? And they said, yes. And I said, well, why does that bother you? And they said, I don't know. And I said, well, it's bothering you because they're showing you that they haven't got any time for you. And they went, yeah, because they haven't. So I said, but if we go back to your childhood, did you always feel that your mum had time for you? No, I didn't. So it's not actually that person who hasn't got time for you. This goes back to a inner child. So it's that type of thing. So I work with people on lots of different things, and that's where you'd go in and energetically work with the sound and the frequency. But then I'm also working with them emotionally and mentally, nurturing that, helping them to overcome that in using lots of other different techniques. So there's lots, like I said, there's lots going on. When I work with teenagers and young people, a lot of that work is around how to release emotions in a healthy way, learning how to relax, and and helping them have an awareness around their own self-regulation. So in essence, it's good if you suffer with anxiety, anger, low emotional, mental well-being, which again is for the adults as well. You know, it's anxiety, it's depression. But when you dig deep, you know, what is depression? When you get right underneath it, it's going to stem back to depression is just a symptom. What's the cause? That's what I work with. But when it comes down to anything, ultimately, when I work with somebody, it's about commitment. So it's commitment to yourself to want to make a change. Because I could just, as you know, James, I'm doing it now, I can just go on and on and on forever talking. However, there's no point talking if you're not going to commit to making the change.
Great points. Great points. I have a question for you now. Thank you for all of that. And that again gives a really good insight. So sound can heal. And again, you use lots of modalities and things like that. Sound can heal. Now, it would be my understanding that sound through the vibrational therapy, all of that, it can heal all the cells of our body, which would include both what we would kind of call physical cells, the physical or physiological side of our body, but also, it's those beliefs, those thought processes, etc., all the emotions, you're healing that as well. So how much of it would people sort of notice both things occurring? So would they sometimes get some, because again, a lot of health problems are symptoms, aren't they? They're physical symptoms of again, things like trauma and things like that. So would they notice both physical improvements as well as mental or emotional improvements, or bit of both?
Yeah, because it's all interconnected, really. If if we backtrack a little bit, and if we can accept that all energy has a vibration, all vibration has a frequency. So our bodies are vibrating at a certain frequency. That includes, organs, brain, cells, blood, everything. If we tie that into our emotions and thoughts, they are vibrating at a specific frequency as well. And your thoughts and your emotions are held within your cellular system. Okay, so you've got all of those things vibrating at different frequencies. If you have an event that happens in your life and it is trauma, a lot of trauma people think is in the brain, stored in the brain in the form of a memory, but it isn't. A lot of trauma is stored within the body, within the nervous system, because the brain just can't hold it if it's too big. So that trauma gets trapped, and that trauma has a frequency. Okay. Now that frequency from that trauma is going to emit, send out certain emotions and feelings to you because it's pushed down, and it may come up as self-sabotage or anger or another form of vibrational expression. Okay, so if we keep suppressing, what happens is that the body eventually goes, I can't cope. And it will start to send you a message. So wherever that vibrational frequency is stuck within you, okay, you're going to start feeling something. So if you're not responding to clearing your emotions and your feelings and going in and doing what I call your inner work, your body starts to act as a messenger and getting your attention in a different way, which will be a physical way. And then you have the opportunity, to listen and go in and work with that. If you do, then you're going to start working with that energy and the pain will go. Then the trauma starts to go. Yeah. But if you don't start listening to your body being the messenger, that body is going to start shouting louder and louder and louder. And that's when you can manifest it into illness, or it's going to manifest into a disease or something, until you start to listen. So it's all very much intertwined for me, you know, and don't get me wrong, you work through things at different levels. So you may think you've worked through your trauma, but your trauma will have different layers. But it may be that you just work through it at a certain point in time, because you're not meant to work through it, all of it in one go. And then you'll do that, and then there'll be another layer for you to go through. I'm sure you've heard of the layer expression before. But I hope that helps to explain it, because it isn't straightforward, you know. And when we, you know, sometimes take medicine, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with medicine, because there isn't, just caveat that. However, it's really important that we go in and look at really what's going on inside of ourselves. And this is the part that people find difficult. So sometimes when people come, when you say to me about starting points, sometimes when people enter my room and lay down for the first time, that is a very vulnerable moment, because they haven't wanted to be still or be silent. And because when they do that, it means they have to stop and look at something. And so people sometimes prefer to be busy the whole time. So, you know, that's why we start in different places and work through resistance in different levels.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. Thank you so much. And as you were saying that, I was thinking of the whole Western culture of, I've got this problem, I'm going to go to the doctor, I'll get, you know, this medicine to try and solve that. But of course, yeah, you're working on the symptom level rather than the root cause level. And obviously what you do is you look at the root causes of these things and, you know, work at a deeper level. So, well, I could keep talking to you for ages, or rather have you talking to me, so I can just absorb all this really interesting information. But we're going to bring it to a close. So if anybody is interested and intrigued and thinks, well, you know, maybe I should find out a little bit about this myself and experience this myself, how can people get hold of you, Di?
Yeah, I would say website, because that's then got all of my links and email addresses and everything. So that was www.vibrationalsoundtherapy, all one word, .co.uk.
Brilliant. That's amazing. And we'll put everything in the show notes as well. So that's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you ever so much for your time today. And I will say, keep doing all the amazing work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I've really enjoyed it. You asked some really good questions.
Thank you so much for watching. 3 quick things to do now. 1, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. 2, go to the inneranthem.com website and access your free video series, the 3-minute music life hack, so you can find out how to use music to enhance your life. And thirdly, get your own copy of the Empowerment Songs albums at the inneranthem.com website.